Hindu Kush Mountains. So what we call northern area of Pakistan consists of three high mountain ranges in the world. It is Hindu Kush Mountains, which is spread between Afghanistan and Pakistan. In the Chitral district of Pakistan, that is mostly covered by Hindu Kush Mountains. Then we have Karakoram Mountains, which include the Gilgit district of Pakistan, and on which world's highest mountain highway is built, world's highest highway, Karakoram Highway. And the third mountain range is Himalayan range, which includes the Gilgit of Baltistan in Pakistan. So these three districts, Baltistan, Gilgit, and Chitral, are located between these three mountain ranges, Himalayas, Karakoram, and Hindu Kush. So very challenging area and very difficult terrain and mostly inaccessible mountain communities. But Aga Khan Rural Support Program did a miracle. You hear the story of development, alleviation of poverty. Most of the time in the development literature, you will see, contrary to the conventional belief that success has so many fathers and failure is always an orphan. In development literature, you will see failure has so many fathers and success is always an orphan. You don't hear many stories of hope and success and change. And here we see between 1982 to 1992, the income of 100,000 families spread across this most difficult region in the world was doubled due to the work of Aga Khan Rural Support Program. And this week, BBC has published a story where it has given the name of 100 most influential women in the world. And one of them is from this region. Her name is Anam Huma. I read this story this morning. I was so pleased to see that story. And she comes from a village called Shimshal. And let me tell you, in 1987, when I was working with Aga Khan Rural Support Program, there was no road connecting Shimshal with Gilgit city. And it took 5 walking days to move from Gilgit to Shimshal. Today it is connected by road and it takes only 5 hours. And Shimshal has many world stars, and Anna Huma is one of them, a female who did a remarkable work, and she has been recognized among 100 women by BBC. 5 years ago, when I gave a talk at McGill, the guy who was heading Aga Khan Rural Support Program, his name was Muzaffar, who was general manager. When I was working there, he lived in Shimshal and he was a shepherd boy. So you can see in one generation's time, which is almost 25 to 30 years, the life has changed, not only at collective level, but at individual level also. So we wonder what happens to development assistance when it goes to these countries. Why there are so many stories of failures? We see very bright, trailblazing stories like Aga Khan Rural Support Program, and there are many other programs in Pakistan which have done the same. And most of them without any external development assistance. But Aga Khan Rural Support Program has the privilege that they use foreign assistance in such a way that they showed that results could be achieved. So what is the difference? What explains the difference? today I want to talk about that. And my story is based about various successful experiments in Pakistan for human and social development and promoting education, health, water, sanitation, education, basically human and social development. And there are two approaches. Kazu, if you could show the slide. So I think there are two approaches. Yeah, you will see I've used the word solicitor or contractor because the resources are there. Resources are there with the multilateral agencies like the World Bank, Asian Development Bank, African Development Bank, Latin American Development Bank, and the UN system, which has many agents, numerous agencies, almost 29 different agencies. Then there are bilateral donors like European and North American donors, USAID, Global Affairs Canada, Development for International Development, then AusAid from Australia, JICA, Japanese International Cooperation Agency, many of these agencies. So one wonders what happens to them, why they can't produce these results. So there are two approaches. I just want you to know these two approaches and to make the decision yourself what makes sense to you. I'm not going to speak for one or against one. But the first thing, which is very important to know is, whether you are, I have mentioned two approaches, solicitor or contractor. Solicitor is the one who works like a good lawyer, goes to the community, engages in dialogue with the community, finds out the ground situation, finds out the ground reality, priorities of the people, resources available, unmet needs, barriers, and how those barriers should be crossed. And based on that understanding, then they go and access resources from what I call providers. These providers could be multilateral agencies, bilateral agencies, philanthropists, government, ordinary citizens. In contrast, the contractors are the one who go there with the thinking that they know what the problems are. They also know what the solutions are. They also know how they should be implemented. They also have bags of money in their hand. So they know what is best for the people. That makes a difference. And when they fail, the contractors, they very conveniently blame it on the people who received that funding. Either there is corruption in the government, or people are not motivated, or their best explanation is that people are not aware. So give us more money to create awareness. In my view, you don't need to create awareness for hunger to a person who has only one meal a day available, who is hungry. They don't need any awareness. They are aware of the problem. They have some awareness of the solution also. But we need to trust them in identifying what they think is the problem and what they think is the best solution. I'll give you an example. My friend Umid Milani, who is an Iranian, he says that humor always opens our minds and hearts to look at the views that we don't agree with. So just for fun's sake, to open your mind, I don't know if you will find it funny or not, because our southern sense of humor is different from the northern sense of humor. So, but the story is that a laborer who is working on the second floor of a building, he falls down and goes unconscious. So people gather around him, they call a doctor. Doctor comes and feels his pulses, takes the temperature, looks at him. and he declares him dead. In the meanwhile, this guy regains consciousness, who was just unconscious, and he says, "No, no, I am alive, I am not dead." And the guy standing in the crowd, he says, "Shut up, you know better or the doctor knows better." So that is the problem. When it comes to development issues, we think that doctor knows better. Doctor, of course, knows better, but it is always important to ask the patient, what is your situation, how you are feeling, because doctor has to receive the data from the patient to be able to make the most sound decision. So in development world, there are three main actors, which I mentioned here: people, professionals, and politicians. And it is important to know, if we go through the project cycle management, I have made this table keeping in view the project cycle management, which starts with diagnosis of the problem, then harvesting knowledge or bringing in knowledge, then costing or designing a program, then deciding standard operation procedures, and then coming with monitoring and evaluation mechanisms, and then the result assessment. So these are various stages, and both the contractor and solicitor, they have different approach. For example, when it comes to solicitors, they think that people know best their local priorities. And it is important to ask them what their priorities are. We only can serve them better if we know their priorities. But contractors think that we already know, or based on our survey or studies we have done, we already have a better idea what is the problem and how it should be solved. And most of the time they think the problem is technical or financial. People don't know the technical solution for this problem, or they don't have enough financial resources. Since we have technical knowledge and we have the money, we can come up with a solution, we can implement it, and then they have designed some toolkits to assess whether they have succeeded or not. And one of them is logical framework analysis to design the program, and the other is result-based management to assess the end result. So these are the tools used by them. But the people who believe that our job is to work as a solicitor, to know the demands of the community and take it to the people, they work differently. And the provider's role in all these cases is to look at the needs of the priorities of the communities and then come up with the resources. But one other important difference is that not only people define what are the best priorities, but also they have enormous resources available with them. If we don't look at the people, we can't find that those resources are best. And without tapping these resources, we cannot make these programs successful or sustainable, financially sustainable. So that is the issue. So let me begin with this. Like in Aga Khan Rural Support Program, what happened? When they went to northern areas, they had a good team of professionals. They had Shoaib Sultan Khan as general manager, most experienced rural development expert available at that time. He was globally known. He had done work. He had taught at Nagoya, a UN university in Nagoya, Japan. He had worked with the Maha Ganga Valley rural development project in Sri Lanka, and his story was published in the Newsweek magazine, A Man Known Mr. Khan, which gave him the compliment that he is the only rural development expert who lives in a village, because he worked in the rural areas and lived with the communities. So they had one of the best rural development experts. And when his program was evaluated by the World Bank, midterm evaluation 4 years after, they were so impressed. They said that these 4 years are 4 years missed by the rest of the world because they don't know the methodology he has used and how the result he has achieved. But he had also technical experts, horticulturists, livestock specialists, agriculturists, engineers, financial analysts, economists, good team of experts. But they decided that they will ask the villagers. So during the first year of his stay, in 1 year, he almost held meetings with 250 rural communities. They would go to all these communities. They had the social organizer at the lowest tier of the organization who will first go, spend time with the community, talk to them, and ask them if they're interested in alleviating poverty. And would they like to get together and have a dialogue with Aga Khan Rural Support Program and find out the solution together. And once they agreed, then they will arrange a meeting. But beforehand, they will not decide who should be the leader of the community. They just hold a community dialogue. This was called diagnostic dialogue. In diagnosed dialogue, they asked two things, only two questions to the village community. Do you think that poverty is your main concern, your highest priority to alleviate poverty? And you are willing to organize to alleviate poverty? And second is, can you identify one main barrier which is stopping you from rising above the poverty level and helping alleviation of poverty? So this was the dialogue held with the community, open dialogue. In the beginning, there were only males. Then many donors and visitors, they raised this issue again and again, why no women are there. They were told that as women do not mix with men generally in day-to-day, living. So we will engage women, but we will create separate organization of women so that they have complete freedom. They're not dominated by men, and they can openly express their views and identify activities which they can take over themselves. So this was done. They were asked if the community agreed that yes, priority is our poverty is our priority. We want to alleviate poverty, and we're willing to organize for this, and we are willing to organize the barriers. Then they said this was called first dialogue. Diagnosis dialogue consisted of 3 dialogues. So in the first dialogue, they will identify priorities. And they were told in the second dialogue, then they met again and asked them, what do they think is the single most important intervention which can alleviate their poverty? And what are the barriers in alleviating the poverty in their way? They did not assume it is a technical problem or financial problem. They asked them, what do they think? So, for example, many of these communities, when they were approached, they said that, most of our land, which can be irrigated, is not irrigated because we don't have access to water channels. There are no water channels. There are big streams passing by, close to the village. But since there are no water channels and it's a mountainous area, it is very difficult to dig water channels. Due to lack of access to water, we cannot irrigate our land, which is unused, which could, help us raise our level of income, that is the main barrier in our way. So we need help. So this was very interesting point, because at this point, Aga Khan Rural Support Program told them, although think that people have no assets, they are poor, they have no money, that is our understanding of the poor. So we have to, one-sidedly go and do everything. Identify the problem, come with a technical solution, give them the money. Aga Khan Rural Support Program told them, no, it is a two-way street. It is reciprocal. We will give you something, and in return, you will give us something. Don't consider that you have no resources. Don't consider that you're completely helpless. Don't consider that you cannot contribute. What you can contribute? One is create a community organization in the village. It was called CO, Community Organization, or VO, Village Organization. Because until and unless you come together, you work together on this project, this problem cannot be solved. You have to all come together. Each of your family has to depute one adult male from your household to get engaged in the process of digging the water channel, and to be trained in the use of explosives and use of instruments. So you create an organization. But for an organization to run effectively, it must have a president and a secretary general. President is needed who can glue the community, who is trusted by most of the people. It is not necessary the president is the richest man or the most powerful man in the village. The person who is most trustworthy, whom people could go and grab by his collar if something goes wrong, and who is available one door knock away. So by consensus, but you will select your president not by elections, but through consensus. The reason elections are considered very democratic. But why they didn't ask for elections? Because election lays the foundation for creating feud within the community. It creates two parties who keep contesting for power. So they said, we don't want to sow the seed of dissension in the community. So you have to pick a leader by consensus, on which most of you agree, and best all of you agree. And he doesn't have to be an educated man. The basic credential is that person should have trust of the community. You can find a school teacher or retired army soldier or one, that's fine. But otherwise, even if a person is not literate, but enjoys the trust of the community, should be. Secondly, the person who is Secretary General will keep the record and minutes of the meetings. So should pick someone who is relatively younger, maybe high school, going to high school, who can read and write and keep the minutes. So one is creating an organization and selecting office peers to create cohesion and what we in technical language call creating social capital. Then they were asked that they will do regular savings. People thought we are poor. How can we save? We don't have any money. But this was very important to help them cross their psychological barrier that they are poor, they are in need of handouts. They cannot collect their resources and make a sizable sum. So this would create economies of scale. So by Pakistani standard, it was something as small as say 10 Canadian cents or 5 cents a month. They were encouraged to deposit that. Village community organization created a bank account, which was joint account of the village, where they all deposited money. But whatever they deposited was kept in the form of record on the passbook. So they individually could track how much money they have contributed just there. But the wisdom behind this was that a commercial bank whose sole aim is to earn profit, they will not lend to a small farmer who has come there for $5 of loan. Its administrative cost is too high, much more than $5. But if there are 100 households, each one of them applies for $50 loan and they need $5,000, then it becomes administratively affordable for the bank. So by creating community organization and creating a joint saving account, you create what is called economies of scale, reduce the administrative cost of the bank, take over part of the administrative cost by the village organization itself, and then make them a credible client for the bank. So you help them cross the financial barrier instead of depending on the donors and donors' money. And by teaching them how to use explosive, how to dig, you cross the technical barrier also. And bringing the organization together, you cross the social barrier. So this way, once they created the organization, elected office bearers, started savings, and agreed to improve the skills of their people, not only for digging the water channel, but for what agriculture and livestock and other things also, which led to improvement of their income. So if they did it for 3 months, then they qualified for receiving assistance from AKRSP. This gave them a sense of responsibility, honor, dignity, and confidence that we are masters of our own destiny and we will solve our own problem with our own efforts. And they were also told that the first project you identify, AKRSP will give you grant money because digging a water channel is very expensive. But this grant money was investment in creating their social capital, bringing them together, and investment in their human capital, improving their skills. But they were told once this is done, your income starts increasing and you have regular source of income. Then second project will not be financed through grant. That will be done using those savings. You will have to increase the size of your savings, which will have to do with, for example, increasing productivity. So it will need more of a skill training than building in infrastructure, which was done in the first case. So that way, in 10 years, they were able to double the area under irrigation in northern India, which automatically doubled the income of the average family. And 10 years after that, due to this performance, Ramon Magsaysay Award, which is known as Nobel Prize of Asia, they recognized the services of Shoaib Sultan Khan, General Manager of Aga Khan Rural Support Program, for doubling the income. And he was given Ramon Magsaysay Award for the task he achieved. And United Nations Development Program, they saw this program as so inspiring and so successful. They provided funding to him to lead the South Asia Poverty Alleviation Program, which was then started in India, Nepal, Bangladesh, Bhutan, Sri Lanka, and one other country. So it was Bangladesh. It was spread all over South Asia. And then Aga Khan, this is very interesting, Pakistan and India, South Asia is considered the world's special region, which has the highest concentration of the poor. And there he led a program which can be called largest poverty alleviation program in the world, South Asia Poverty Alleviation Program. And Pakistan and India are only known for their adversarial relationship as two nuclear powers always at loggerhead. But this was the case where for poverty alleviation, they came together. And government of India accepted Shoaib Sultan Khan as the lead expert for starting largest poverty alleviation program in India. And the Minister of Rural Development for India, he gave him the credit that he has taught us the best way of alleviating poverty. It started with Andhra Pradesh state, but then spread to all the states of the union government in India. And when he went there, Chief Secretary of Andhra Pradesh state, Kapula Raju, he said, Mr. Khan, you have come here to tell us how to alleviate poverty. But 6 months from now, we don't want to hear from you that your conditions were not met. And that is why the program has failed. You tell us right away, what are your conditions so that we meet those conditions. He said, I have only two conditions. I will start only in one village. I will not start all over India. The problem with the contractor program is to want to show the impact, they want to start all over. He said, I will start only in one village. If it is successful, people will be drawn to it. That will be the sign of its success. That if other people see it and they want to replicate it, they don't want to stay behind, they want to do the same thing, it means it has succeeded. Otherwise, if we just keep pumping in money and spending our money, by the way, in donors' language, multilateral donors or bilateral donors, they use the so-called phrase result-based management. Result-based management doesn't mean that you have achieved the results, it means you have spent all the money of your project. So they use this proxy. So in this case, it was not spending the money. It was doing the job so well that others want to follow it. So he said, that is my first condition. And the second is that the community with whom I work, they want to alleviate poverty and they're willing to organize for them. If these two conditions are met, poverty will be alleviated. And it's started, and it's amazing. You can go and read the assessments. So that is the solicitor's point of view. There you diagnose local priorities and then create a receiving mechanism, as you can see in my table. Receiving mechanism means the community organization, which receives that technical and financial assistance, uses that, carries out technical oversight of that program, and takes the responsibility. The problem with the contractor approach is that when we go there with your money and your ideas, you have already decided that we should have a school here, especially women's school. That is the cause of poverty. Or we should have a health clinic, or we should have this and that. And you go and ask the community, do you want this? They will say, yes, we want this. Why? This is what is called role play. If they know you have got the money and you are going to spend it, why should they say no? They will always welcome the money to come. But once the project is completed, money is spent, you go away, it collapses. So there are thousands of ghost schools, thousands of ghost health facilities, thousands of dysfunctional water supply scheme and sanitation schemes in Pakistan, as well as many other areas of the world which are receiving development assistance. There is nothing wrong with the people, with their capacity, with their ambitions. Nothing wrong with their desire to overcome poverty, but the way we conduct this. Now, second is, an important part of this is harvesting local knowledge. That local knowledge could be in the form of their practices. How, for example, when you are starting a water supply scheme, how the water needs are met. From where you fetch water, who brings in water, and what is its impact? Is it clean? It is drinkable or not drinkable? And I keep track of the time also. Yeah. So I'll run quickly. I think we have. So you first understand and document the existing practices. Then you document the existing infrastructures. There are three main infrastructures. Administrative infrastructure. Does the government line department exist at village level to provide education, health, water, sanitation, extension services to the farmer, all these facilities or not? Is there a social infrastructure? Are people organized? If you want to provide them skill improvement, government might not be able to reach out to each household. But if the houses are organized, even one person goes from the village, that can be disseminated subsequently to hundreds of households. So the administrative cost of providing extension services is reduced. So do we have administrative infrastructure, which means government departments, social infrastructure, which means community organization, and political infrastructure? Do we have elected body of the people whose responsibility is to take the demands of the local communities to the government and access resources? If those infrastructures don't exist, then receiving mechanism does not exist. Then you are dumping all your development assistance money in a pitless well. All the money is going there. There is no receiving mechanism. So then the civil servants who access that money and they have to show the results, then they find ways to spend money to show the success for the result, which could be buying air conditioners, laptops, vehicles, spend most of the money on the office expenses, whatever is left for improvement of the skills of the officers, go to Paris, London, New York, and acquire skills from there. Very little spent on the people. So from result-based management point of view, the results have been achieved, but there's no impact. So we have to then find a proxy for the impact as we found proxy for the results. We say we have to find someone to blame. Either it's the government, corruption in the government department, inefficiency, or we say awareness or technical incompetence. Most of these people in civil service, they are trained in the same education institution where the donor come from. So they have the competence. But we say they don't have the competence, they don't have the awareness, so pour all your money into these two areas. Whereas what you need to invest is, you need to invest in building social capital. And for social capital, program manager has to be in the area where the people live. Consultants come for 1 or 2 or 3 weeks, and the amount of money they charge for their consulting mission is sufficient to hire a national expert for the whole year who can continue the dialogue throughout and glue the community together through continuous interaction and dialogue. So you have to create, that is the second thing, important thing you need. And third is costing and designing. Let's go down, because even when you are in touch with the community, the way you cost and you design the program for people in low income area as you design it for people living in the high income area. So specifications are different, which are very expensive. People don't need it. And similarly, the cost, the government in Pakistan, it might happen in other parts of the world, they have a rate book. They go and pick the rates from that. So the sub-engineer who designs the program never moves out of his office. So the specification is there already, price is there, which is no compatibility what is happening on the ground, what are the market prices, what's the specification needed. So it already becomes very expensive and unaffordable, and therefore you need foreign debt. So if the administrative infrastructure doesn't exist, another option is for you to create a support organization like our Hanur Support Program. It does the same job which a government administration department does. And then you decide SOPs. Can we go further down, Kazu? The last one I think is very important before we finish. Yeah. So then you need to, financing, please. So to finance these projects that the community has identified, there's 6-7 very interesting methodologies which have been used in Pakistan. One is component sharing, which makes it affordable for the government and community to undertake these programs without any foreign technical assistance. Component sharing means that government does the job outside the community level, and community takes charge of household and lane level. Once this is done, it automatically reduces government's cost by 1/7. And when it comes to community, their component, again, if it is done without the contractor, it further reduces the cost. It becomes affordable for the community and also for the government. Or there is economy of scale through credit. I have already talked about it. Incremental development like shelter programs, many government shelter programs failed because the down payment they sought from the poor people and monthly installment was so high, they could not pay it. But then people in the informal sector came up with the solution that we don't include the cost of development of a plot in the cost of the plot. So down payment is reduced. Development cost is charged incrementally as we lay the sewage line, water line, other things. As we do that, we charge an installment for that. So you do incremental development, it becomes affordable. Or you do metering the services they receive, or you do asset development for them, as in the case of AKRSP, you created SRJ, which create permanent income, like water channels. And then tracking expenses through doing mapping, which was done by Praveen Rahman in Karachi. And last and most important, which was very spread at least almost all the Muslim world, it must have been in other parts of the world also, which is called establishment of local trust. It is called Waqf in Arabic, Farsi, and Urdu. Waqf means people pool their own resources. And when British annexed Punjab during their rule in 1852, there was 100% literacy in Punjab at that time, and that was all based on community trusts. There were 29,000 villages, and each village had a trust which financed the salary of the teacher and they picked up other expenses, and that led to universal literacy both among males and females. And they were disbanded by the British, and G.W. Leitner, who was Director of Public Instruction in Punjab, at that time he made the prophecy that 100 years from now, literacy will be wiped out from Punjab. So it was not due to lack of resources, it was due to elimination of the assets which already existed. I will stop here, I think. I have taken all the time, but if there are any questions, I can address them.
Thank you so much, Professor Vakir, for such an insightful lecture. Before we start the question periods, I just want to encourage you all to learn more about the Aga Khan Rural Support Program in Pakistan that is improving the social economic conditions for people in the northern Pakistan. The website link is available on my courses in announcement, if I'm not mistaken. You are also encouraged to read Professor Bakir's recent book, Social Transformation in Pakistan, to understand more in depth the transformation that occurred in Pakistan. We will now proceed to the period of questions. So if you have any questions, please feel free to raise your hand and I will call on you. So, Rafay.
Hi, thank you, Professor Bakir, for sharing your insights here today. My family is from Karachi, Pakistan, originally. And you mentioned when news is often bleak coming out of the nation, it can be hard to stay optimistic about development. And so it's very nice to hear about the stories of hope as you contend. And so my question is about, like, from an external perspective, and I could be incorrect in this assessment, it appears that constant shifts in political power and governance means that there's a lot of instability. And then a lot of the work that ends up happening, as you mentioned, by civil society organizations such as Aga Khan and the IDI Foundation are stepping in where governments have failed their duty to alleviate poverty. And there doesn't exist like the infrastructure you talked about at the political level. And so in your perspective, what do you think needs to change at the governance level to support the work civil society organizations like Aga Khan are doing and that governments themselves can do to bolster the infrastructure?
Rafael, thank you. Thank you so much. Very good question. First thing I want to propose is, I'm not being cynical here, that you need to stop watching media and social media. You can only hear sob stories on media and social media. Unfortunately, they don't cover anything on what is being done, what I called a silent revolution in Pakistan, which has been going on for the last 40 years. For also your information, I want to tell you that there are 14 Pakistanis who have received Ramon Magsaysay Award. Not only one Shoaib Sultan Khan, there are 14, and there are women also. And there are many women who have not received Ramon Magsaysay Award or civil society organizations, but they have done such a remarkable and inspiring work. It is unbelievable. So there are other sources. You can go to Aga Khan Rural Support Program. I don't want to promote my organization, the Knowledge Executive, which I have established. If you go to our website, we have recorded the interviews of 26 such initiatives from civil society in Pakistan. And they're heartwarming. They are, I mean, you will see what is happening in Pakistan, which is not mentioned on media. They always talking of the bickering within the elite. They don't talk of the people, what is happening with their lives. People are taking care of their own needs. Just to give you one indicator, Pakistan's social sector budget, which is much lower than the social sector budget required for countries at that level of income. Even that is not fully spent every year. Only 50% of that is spent. And whatever is spent is not fully utilized. And whatever is utilized does not perform. But in contrast, indigenous philanthropy in Pakistan, which has been documented by Johns Hopkins University and Aga Khan Rural Support Program, their size is double the size of social sector budget of the government of Pakistan. It is because of them that poor are surviving and thriving. And it is important to know what they have done. Aga Khan Rural Support Program is one, Orangi Pilot Project is another, Indus Hospital, and one of the recent and the brightest program is providing loans to micro enterprises without interest by Dr. Amjad Saqib. He is the latest one who has received Ramon Magsaysay Award. And the stories of these people are documented, or Seema Aziz by a Harvard Business Review by others. So if you go to our website, you will see 26 interviews. You will see one of the books which Yasmin has mentioned will be there. But I will keep it very short because I see another hand. But I think there's so much to read about and know about.
Thank you. Jasmine?
Hi, Professor. Thank you so much for your very engaging and fruitful speech. My question is that you have mentioned how schools sometimes they become ghost schools or ghost health centers because people they would likely to be accepting the donations, but they wouldn't actually run it in the long term. So what do you think is one of the key strategies to solve this problem? And I'm also curious about if they ask for help again and the UN comes back to see that, what measures will be taken for this problem?
Yeah, actually, these trusts were wiped out during the British rule in the name of so-called modernization of education. But thing which was worse was that not only schools were wiped out, but it was wiped out from the memories of our young generation, our intellectuals, our public opinion makers. Most of them did not know this, that this happened. But as the government opened the avenues for them, now there is a study done by Professor Andrabi in University of California, Los Angeles, and others. There is 100% availability of school in the villages in Punjab. And other areas are catching up. Because people have, where government has failed, people have again pooled their resources. These are not trusts now, but they're private primary schools, elementary schools. And they have, what happens on the donor side is there's a DFID project who perhaps gave 3 to 4 million pounds to create awareness. And I think 4 years after the project, the enrollment rate had decreased by 1%. The issue is not awareness or spending such, give lavish money to these projects for awareness. The issue is to create a support mechanism to support organizations to help people create their own facilities. So education, but the quality is still an issue. If you go to our website, you will see that there are civil society organizations. One of them is in Karachi, the Book Group, who have done remarkable work for curriculum development, for pedagogy, and Seema Aziz of the CARE Foundation, who has worked on, in establishing schools for the poor, where they teach the curriculum which is used in the school by the richest of the rich in Pakistan, HESAN. And the person who is heading this program is herself a graduate of HESAN. So you need to know all these things. I will just give you a hint. You will find so much on our website, but feel free to approach me through email. Professor Kazu can share that. But I was able to upload all these interviews this summer, 26 interviews, because of one of Professor Kazu's students, Mahnur Zaman, who is an undergrad at McGill now. She was a big help. And if you guys help me, we can do much more, many more things.
Thank you. Anya?
Hi, Assalamu alaikum. I'm Anya. I'm from Pakistan, and I've just moved. And I wanted to ask because most people are only aware of our, like over here, most people are only aware of our social issues when it comes to poverty and gender inequality whenever I bring up Pakistan. And you mentioned that it's because the media only covers sob stories. Is there like a specific reason as to why is there a reason as to why the media only covers sob stories if we have more successes? Is what you're saying.
Yeah. It's a good question. Walaikum salam. Reason is very simple. There's no conspiracy theory. The problem is of governance because most of these TV channels, private TV channels, as Javed Jabbar once very eloquently said, that they have freedom of expression, but no expression of freedom. Their revenues depend on ads, and their ads depend on the ratings. And the rating depends on how spicy stories and how many conspiracy theories they can spin out and circulate. That is their way of earning revenues. Most of it is not done through cable net or other things. So because of that compulsion, I approached many TV channels when I was in Pakistan. I lived in Islamabad. I was UNDP's senior advisor on civil society. I will go to them. They will ask me to bring a concept paper. I will take the concept paper, then they will put it on the shelf and forget it. Because these stories are very inspiring, but they don't bring so many people to the program. And so the rating, it doesn't raise the rating. That is a simple explanation. But unfortunately, the alternative medium has not been developed. Alternative media. That needs to be developed. I hope one day some civil society organization will take that up. But you can find about most of the work in philanthropic sector on our website or the website of Pakistan Center for Philanthropy in Pakistan.
Thank you. I think this will be the last question, but Nina. Oh,
Sure. Thank you so much for the question and also for the lecture. Well, I do have a question about it. Well, you mentioned like the case in India where like they're facing like sort of a trade-off thing. It's like I give you this aid, but you also have to pay back in some ways. Well, but I'm kind of concerning because India sure is somehow kind of facing some of the financial burdens or like in the poor cases, but there are countries that are even like severe than India, then how can they pay back? Well, sure, though we don't care about like how much the cost actually is, but is it possible that some countries that they just don't have any abilities to pay anything back? And how do people solve that kind of problem?
Well, Nina, the thing is that all these countries we talked about, people have survived there for thousands of years. So they had their needs and they had their ways of meeting those needs also. What happened is when their traditional systems, which were self-sufficient, outsiders first as colonizers, then as the first world, now as the global north, they intervened and they fractured those systems. And they broke those systems and people were not able to continue meeting their needs through their own resources. So there is no such country which cannot meet its needs without external assistance. When the outsiders go, they look at the problem from their point of view and they come up with their solutions. As I told you in the case of Punjab and India, there was a universal system of literacy and they demolished it. And Leitner made a very apt observation. He said that we have created, instead of these indigenous schools, we have created government schools, and they don't believe in helping others. And there is a very small amount of, small number of people we've educated, and we've rendered majority of them uneducated. So once they become, they are no more literate, and not only the literacy is lost, but our memory is lost, we start thinking that these people are incapable of doing anything for themselves. It's only through foreign funding this will be done. So history and memory is very important. But if you have any only other region than South Asia, South Asia is not poor because of poverty of resources. The only other region which has a very fragile resource base is sub-Saharan Africa. Rest of the world, the poverty is creation of history, of politics of aid.
Oh,
Thanks.
sure. Thank you for the answer.
Thank you.
I think that concludes our lecture today. Once again, thank you, Professor Bakir, and thank you all for your questions. Have a great day.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much
Nice
for
talking to you. Yeah.
the
Thank
opportunity.
you.
Thank you. Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Jasmine, for
Bye-bye.
moderating. Thank you. Mhm.
Okay, let's.
Thank you. Thank you, Fayaz.
Thank you.
Professor.
Yasmin. Thank you.